Hey everyone, today is lesson 1 for Thursday, March 28th. I hope you're doing well. I keep forgetting jokes. I'm so sorry. I know it's disappointing, especially for Asok and for Sue's children who enjoy my jokes. So I'm going to start with a couple today. How do you throw a space party? As in outer space. How do you throw a space party? You plan it. Your second one. Why did the gym close down? Why did the gym close down? It just didn't work out. And the last one. If we shouldn't eat at night, why do they put a light in the fridge? I've always kind of wondered that, actually. If I'm not supposed to get in there at night, why is there a light that makes it very easy? Okay, those are my 3 jokes for the day. I remembered. All right, we're going to start today on probably what will be 2 or maybe all 3 lessons. It just depends on how the time goes, and I never am sure about that. Obviously, sometimes I go over and sometimes I go under, and it's hard. But we're going to be, I'm going to be sending you an article, and the first thing I want to tell you is that the article I'm going to send will be at 2 different reading levels. And I actually have access to this article in about 5 or 4 reading levels. So I certainly could send you a different one if you wanted. But I'm going to send it in the highest reading level and in also a high intermediate, kind of borderline advanced level. Leveling, by the way, leveling of reading material is a very inexact science. There's really no one leveling system that is perfect. And there are actually, especially for use with students in elementary through high school, there are actually a number of different leveling systems that are utilized by teachers and in general in the profession. And so depending on where your child goes to school or where you might research online for reading level information, it just could be any number of systems. The system that is probably the most reliable to look at is for you as a second language learner trying to determine an appropriate reading level for yourself is what we call the Lexile, Lexile, Lexile level. And if you are a proficient reader in the 11th and 12th grade of high school entering university, you are probably reading at a Lexile level of at least 1,200 and above. So for you in determining, if you have the opportunity to choose a reading level, you might want to think of that as being sort of a benchmark number, 1,200 Lexile. And you may be comfortable with going as high as 1,500, 1,600 Lexile. You may need to back it up to 900 or so. Anyway, these articles that come from a source called News LEA. I have sent you several of these already during our video period of time that we've had. So you've seen several of these. The articles that are part of that whole learning website are current event articles or other kinds of documented, researched articles. May not be current in terms of the event itself, but nevertheless researched and fairly much within the last year or two. Anyway, these articles are available at a number of different Lexile levels. So they could be useful for you personally. They could be useful for your family members, depending on their reading levels. Something to take advantage of. And it's a free website. I'll be sending you links. Sometimes I just print it out and send it as a document, or copy it and send it as a document. There are also some little activities and things like that that go along with some of these. So that's a big explanation, but I thought that maybe it would help you to know just a little bit about levels. So I'm going to send an article, and the article is actually about the stimulus checks that were received by American citizens recently as a result of the CARES Act. So I got a little bit of information here for you. The CARES Act was an act or a law, if you will, a decision that affects everyone that was passed by the House of Representatives and then sent to the Senate, debated in the Senate for, I think, a couple of weeks maybe, and then ultimately agreed upon by both the House of Representatives and the Senate, sent to the President for approval. And this all occurred on March the 27th. CARES stands for Coronavirus, Aid, Relief, and Economic Security. Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act of 2020. March the 27th was when it was passed. It was also, excuse me, is also referred to as stimulus money. Stimulus, to stimulate means to cause activity, okay, to make something go. So this was stimulus money, and that's kind of been the word that you have probably seen mostly on the news and heard. So it was to stimulate the economy, all right? Or we just say that people received stimulus checks or stimulus payments. Check is the better term because we really weren't being paid because we didn't actually work for payment, but some people have used the word payment. The total amount that the government provided in stimulus funds was over $2 trillion. Excuse me. Over $2 trillion. Where did the money come from? Well, it was created. It really didn't have a source so much as it did a movement of funds within the federal government, and ultimately the bottom line of these funds were that we really don't have them to begin with. So they increase our national debt in an enormous way. There's talk, as you know, about a second round of stimulus checks, of relief packages, of a relief package being sent out, and it's right now just in the talking phases. We will see if that comes to pass. There's a sense that it's needed to get the economy moving better. But there's also among more conservative thinking economists that this is something that we're going to pay for dearly in the future, because the government can't continue to create money and just increase the debt. We hand that off to our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and so forth. So there's a lot of debate about this. What did that money really specifically go towards? Well, first of all, it went in checks of $1,200 to each American, with a few exceptions, okay? There had to be certain criteria that was met, and some people didn't get quite that much. But a typical American home received $2,400, $1,200 for each spouse. The children did not receive these funds, of course. So a very, very, very large amount went right into the hands of Americans to use to pay bills, buy groceries, take care of medical needs, anything that might help during this time when they could be laid off from work, temporarily cut back on hours, different sorts of situations that people were facing with their jobs. And for folks who really couldn't pay bills, couldn't keep the lights on in their home, or couldn't pay their rent, this was to allow them, hopefully, some assistance in being able to do those things. Some of the money, a very large portion of the money, went to small businesses in America. Small businesses include small companies, as well as something as tiny as a hair salon. So I forget what the exact cutoff is. For instance, I know my daughter's company received a small business loan, and she has 28 employees, I think. So companies that have smaller numbers of employees received this as a loan, and they will not have to pay it back if they meet certain criteria. And in most cases, these companies won't have to pay it back at all. It's a loan, but it, given the situation that we're in, if it's utilized appropriately by that company to pay for employee salaries and health needs, then as long as they can prove they have used it in the right ways, they will not have to pay that back. Larger corporations received assistance as well, as did state governments, local governments, health care industry. So the money went across the board to all different aspects of American life. It also went to organizations. I didn't include that, but I should have. Organizations such as those organizations like homeless shelters and clinics that support people who are on welfare, who can't afford other sorts of medical care. So there was money given to those kinds of entities as well. So really it touched pretty much all aspects of economy here in the United States to hopefully keep things going. Did it work? I guess time will tell. Certainly the economy is suffering, and many businesses are not going to survive and already have shut their doors, or we say they have shuttered the business. Shutters like on a window. You'll often read that a business has been shuttered, and it's as if they've closed the windows, and you can no longer see inside. The business is no longer functioning. So many businesses have already failed in this economy. Some are moving along at a slow pace and gaining a little bit of strength each day, especially as we open up a little bit. Other businesses have actually done well. If you have by chance gone to Home Depot, Lowe's, of course the grocery stores, the pharmacies probably, some of these businesses have done pretty well because they carry essential items that people will will have to have and will spend their money on, whether they have it or not. They'll use credit and purchase items from these places. So there are some businesses that have done okay through this time. We know that tourism is suffering greatly, which includes our air industry, all of our hospitality. Restaurants are beginning to come back a little bit now that they're open, or many of them are open. But we know that this is what we call a very tenuous, Tenuous, tenuous time. Tenuous means that it is very uncertain, and there may be hopeful signs, but only time will tell if things are going to move forward in a positive way. The government is then looking to say, okay, do we need a little more stimulus money right now? Would that help get the economy moving faster? Would people start being confident and spending money if we gave them more? It will be interesting to see. Already the House of Representatives has put together a new package that apparently is very extensive, very big, and very expensive as well as extensive. Extensive means big, expensive, you know what that means. They have put together this package. They have sent it to the Senate. The Senate has already said, no way, it has too much stuff in it that is unnecessary. So the Senate is looking at it and trying to decide what elements, which parts of this package are important and which are not so important. If the House of Representatives and the Senate can agree on this second package and President Trump signs it, then there will be another round of money that will be possibly more stimulus checks to American families, possibly more money for businesses and corporations and organizations and governments and all of those things. So that's in a nutshell. That's kind of where we are. And I'm not an economist by any means, so it's a confusing thing. I know what my check looked like, okay? Trying to understand the big picture is kind of hard. But I do know that this is going to have a negative long-term effect on our economy because of a growing debt that really was already huge and now is just, it is as if a balloon has just broadened it to an enormous extent. All right, So that was kind of introductory for the article that we are going to explore. And I will pick back up and introduce that article and some vocabulary in the second session here.